Have you ever wondered what really went on beyond those massive bronze doors, where divine and human power intertwined in a spectacle that shaped human history? Imagine yourself walking through the narrow, dusty streets of first-century Jerusalem. The blazing sun reflects off the white limestone of the Colossus that dominates the skyline. The Great Temple, a structure so impressive that Roman travelers wrote in awe of its magnificence. The air is heavy with the scent of incense, spices, and the unmistakable metallic smell of sacrificial blood. Your ears pick up the murmur of Hebrew prayers, the clink of coins on money changers' tables, the bleating of lambs being led to the altar. Just as you today seek meaning, guidance, and connection to something greater in a chaotic world, those ancient pilgrims carried the same anguish and hope as they climbed the steps of the temple. The difference? They had a divine system of redemption literally built in stone before them. What few people know is that recent excavations in the Western Wall tunnel have uncovered an astonishingly advanced hydraulic system that allowed for the near instantaneous cleansing of the blood of thousands of sacrifices, a testament to revolutionary engineering that challenges our view of primitive antiquity. This system was not just functional, it was a living metaphor for the spiritual purification that this sacred space promised. The priestly hierarchy that operated within these sacred walls followed rules so rigid and elaborate that they have shaped our modern understanding of institutional organization. But what did these meticulously executed rituals really mean? And how was the presence or absence of the divine experienced within this consecrated space? In the next few minutes, you will not only learn about a building from the past, but you will discover a new perspective on your own spiritual journey. The truth behind the temple's veil is about to be revealed, and with it, secrets that will forever transform your understanding of the divine and the human. The shocking revelation, the true purpose of the temple, that traditional religious texts hide. When we think of the temple in Jerusalem, we usually think of it as a place of worship and sacrifice. But the truth, revealed through in-depth historical study and recent archaeological evidence, is much more surprising and complex. What few people know is that the temple in Jerusalem was actually the largest financial institution in the ancient world of the Eastern Mediterranean. Manuscripts discovered in the Qumran caves reveal that the temple treasury stored billions of dollars worth of wealth in today's dollars. It was not just a bank, it was the economic epicenter that sustained the entire region of Judea. Even more shocking, analysis of animal bones found in the temple's dump reveals that approximately 250,000 lambs were sacrificed during Passover alone. This was not simply a religious ritual, but a massive industrial operation that employed thousands of people and powered an entire economy based on the trade of animals, spices, textiles, and services. What traditional texts rarely emphasize is that the temple functioned simultaneously as supreme court, parliament, and administrative center. The Sanhedrin was not just a religious council, it was the true government of the Jewish nation, even under Roman occupation. Recently translated inscriptions show that political, economic, and legal decisions were all centralized in this space supposedly dedicated solely to worship. Perhaps most strikingly, archaeological discoveries in the southern area of the Temple Mount have revealed hundreds of mikvaot, ritual baths, interconnected by a sophisticated hydraulic system, indicating that ritual purification was not just a spiritual act but a public, communal experience on an industrial scale. Pilgrims did not come merely to pray. They came to participate in a transformative experience that involved all the senses and aspects of life. The temple then was not just an isolated religious building. It was a city within a city, a microcosm that reflected and governed all aspects of Jewish life, religious, political, economic, judicial, cultural, and social. This insight revolutionizes our view not only of ancient Judaism, but of how religious institutions have shaped human society from time immemorial to our own day. This revelation forces us to ask, if Judaism's holiest site was so integral to everyday life, why do we so separate the spiritual from the material in our own contemporary experience? Walk the temple's secret corridors like a first-century pilgrim. Close your eyes for a moment. Now imagine yourself as a Galilean pilgrim who, after days of arduous travel, finally comes within sight of the walls of Jerusalem. Your heart races, your palms sweat. You are about to enter the holiest place in the known world. The first thing that hits you as you approach the Temple Mount is its sheer size. The white limestone blocks, some weighing more than 500 tons, gleam in the Judean sun as if made of pure light. Archaeologists have recently confirmed that these stones, some still visible in the western wall, were so perfectly cut that they required no mortar between them. You walk with thousands of other pilgrims through the double gate on the south side, your bare feet feeling the chill of the stone slabs polished by millions of steps over the centuries. The smell is the next thing that hits you. A complex mix of spikenard incense, smoke from sacrifices, olive oil from lamps, and the perfume of hundreds of spices sold in the stalls of the court of the Gentiles. The sound is overwhelming. Imagine the hum of tens of thousands of people, the bleating of sheep, the cooing of caged doves, the chanting of Levites, the clink of coins on the money changers' tables, all reverberating against the stone walls, in a sacred cacophony that your ancestors experienced just as you do now. You are led through specific corridors, following a predetermined flow. Documents discovered at Masada reveal that movement within the temple was strictly controlled, with separate paths for men, women, priests, and Gentiles. A system of crowd management so sophisticated that it still influences the design of modern airports today. Now you come to the courtyard of the Israelites. From here, you can see in the distance the altar of sacrifice, where smoke rises constantly. The metallic smell of blood is inescapable. The recently excavated water channels on the southern Temple Mount show how water was used to cleanse the blood, which flowed through elaborate systems to maintain ritual purity, an engineering that would be remarkable even by today's standards. As you approach the sanctuary itself, you begin to sense something different, a growing silence, a heaviness in the air. This is where non-priests should pause. Your gaze follows the steps of the priests, dressed in immaculate white, as they disappear behind the vast Babylonian veil that, according to Josephus, combined 4 colors to represent the 4 elements of creation. You cannot go beyond it, but you feel the divine presence. This full sensory experience, the journey into sacred space, was deliberately designed to transform not just your intellectual understanding, but your entire being. Like your ancestors, you experience the divine through all your senses, in a physical journey that mirrored the spiritual journey of the soul toward purification. Recent archaeological discoveries are rewriting our understanding of the temple's magnitude. For decades, our understanding of the temple in Jerusalem has been limited to brief historical accounts and the descriptions of Flavius Josephus. But in recent decades, a quiet revolution has been taking place on the slopes of the Temple Mount, where archaeologists are unearthing evidence that is completely transforming our understanding of this extraordinary monument. In 2011, excavations at the City of David Archaeological Park revealed something that has astounded experts. A nearly 2,000-foot-long processional road paved with enormous, perfectly fitted stone slabs connecting the Pool of Siloam to the temple. This discovery confirmed that the pilgrimage system was far more elaborate than previously thought, with specific ritual routes that gradually prepared the pilgrim for the sacred experience. Even more impressive, was the discovery in 2017 of an intact Roman theatre adjacent to the Western Wall, a structure never mentioned in historical texts. This groundbreaking find suggests that after the destruction of the temple in 70 CE, the Romans not only conquered Jerusalem, but attempted to transform Judaism's holiest site into a pagan entertainment center, a calculated affront to Jewish memory. In the excavations of the Western Wall tunnel, archaeologists recently discovered a colossal stone block estimated to weigh 570 tons, possibly the largest ancient building stone ever found. To put this into context, this single stone weighs more than 2 fully loaded Boeing 747s. Modern engineers still debate how such blocks were transported and positioned with such precision without advanced technology. Another groundbreaking discovery was the discovery of an intact stone inscription, warning Gentiles not to trespass on certain areas of the Temple Mount under penalty of death, exactly as described by Josephus, but now physically confirmed. This tangible evidence shows us how rigorously sacred spaces were demarcated and protected. Excavations in the southern area of the Temple Mount have revealed hundreds of mikvahot, ritual baths, interconnected by a sophisticated hydraulic system that used rainwater collected in huge underground cisterns. This discovery confirms that ritual purification was not just a theological concept, but a massive practice on an industrial scale. Perhaps most fascinating, recent analyses of sediments from the Kidron Valley have identified residues of animal blood in such large quantities that they confirm Josephus's accounts of rivers of blood flowing from the temple during festivals, physical evidence of the monumental scale of the sacrifices performed. These discoveries are not just historical curiosities, but tangible testimonies that force us to reimagine the temple not as a single religious building, but as the largest and most advanced architectural complex in the ancient world, a testament to the grandeur of the faith that built it and the society that sustained it. When you swipe a credit card or visit a bank branch today, you would hardly imagine that you are participating in a system that traces its roots back to the temple in Jerusalem. Yet historical and archaeological evidence reveals a startling truth. The temple was not just a religious center, but the first and most sophisticated financial institution in the ancient world. The economic heart of the temple was its own currency, the temple shekel. The money changers Jesus encountered were not mere merchants, but operators of a complex monetary system. Numismatic evidence from excavations around the Temple Mount reveals that these money changers converted more than 17 different currencies, creating a standardized international financial system centered on the shekel, the first documented example of a central reserve currency. Even more impressive, the temple functioned as a depository bank. Documents found at Qumran show that pilgrims and merchants from as far away as Babylon, Alexandria, and Rome deposited their valuables in the temple treasury for its unparalleled security and received certificates, direct precursors to modern banknotes. These early documents represented the first system of virtual money in history, where value was transferred without the physical movement of coins. The temple's system of tithing and tribute, documented in detail in recently deciphered inscriptions, demonstrates the first model of centralized taxation and systematic redistribution of resources. Tithing was not just a religious obligation, but a sophisticated welfare system that supported priests, Levites, widows, and orphans, a model that directly influenced both Islamic zakat and medieval European tax systems. Perhaps most fascinating, archaeologists have recently discovered evidence of organized archives containing detailed records of loans, debts, and business transactions beneath the ruins of the Temple Mount. These temple ledgers represent the first documented system of large-scale centralized accounting, the foundation of the modern financial system. This sacred financial institution created concepts we consider modern: regular auditing by priests, verification of monetary authenticity by money changers, centralized banking in the treasury, and even the first documented examples of mortgage lending recorded on clay tablets found near the Temple Mount. When the Romans destroyed the temple in 70 CE, they destroyed not just a religious building, but the central bank of the Jewish nation. The impact was so devastating that it forced the Jewish diaspora to develop decentralized financial systems that revolutionized the medieval European economy and eventually evolved into our modern banking system. The temple's financial model, then, is not just a historical curiosity, but the seed that germinated the entire Western economic system, a testament to how seemingly religious principles have fundamentally shaped the way we value, store, and exchange wealth to this day. The kept secret about the true identity of the temple priests and their hidden power in society. When we think of the priests of the temple in Jerusalem, we often imagine them as purely religious figures, dedicated exclusively to worship and ritual. But the historical truth, deliberately obscured over the centuries, is much more complex and surprising. What few people know is that the high priest was not just a religious leader, but the de facto ruler of Judea, even under Roman occupation. Manuscripts discovered at Masada reveal that the Romans kept the priestly vestments in custody at the Antonia fortress, releasing them only for specific festivals, a calculated control over religious power that demonstrates the true political weight of this position. Even more surprising, archaeological discoveries in the priestly mansions of Jerusalem's Herodian quarter have revealed luxurious rooms with mosaics, imported bathtubs, and artifacts that demonstrate a standard of living equivalent to that of the Roman aristocracy. This physical evidence proves that the priestly families were not mere religious servants, but the economic elite who controlled trade, landholdings, and even the lucrative financial lending business. What traditional texts rarely mention is that the priestly class was in reality a closed oligarchy composed of just 4 major families: Boethus, Hanin, Annas, Kimhit, and Kathros, who are mentioned in later rabbinic texts with contempt for their monopoly of power. Recently discovered tomb inscriptions in the Kidron Valley confirm that these families controlled not only the temple, but all of Judea's political and economic institutions for generations. Analysis of ossuaries and texts from the period reveals something even more striking. Many of the most powerful priests were in fact culturally aligned with Rome and Greece, adopting Greco-Roman names, participating in Hellenistic cultural events, and sending their children to Alexandria and Rome for education. This Hellenization of the priestly elite represents a profound cultural clash that is rarely discussed. They were simultaneously guardians of the most conservative Jewish tradition and representatives of the most progressive foreign influence. Perhaps most controversially, evidence from multiple sources, including Josephus and the Dead Sea Scrolls, suggests that some ritual and theological decisions were deliberately modified by priests to accommodate political and economic realities. The temple was not just a place of unchanging tradition, but a space where tradition was constantly reinterpreted to serve the interests of the ruling elite. A revelation that challenges our understanding of religious authenticity at the time. This hidden dimension of priestly power forces us to reconsider not only the political dynamics of first-century Judea, but the very nature of religious authority and its relationship to temporal power. A dilemma that continues to resonate in religious institutions to this day. The revolutionary interpretation of the cleansing of the temple episode that transforms its original meaning. The cleansing of the temple episode, when Jesus overturned the money changers' tables, is often interpreted as a simple act against religious corruption. but historical and archaeological evidence reveals a much deeper, more revolutionary context that completely transforms our understanding of this pivotal event. The first aspect that is rarely discussed is the precise timing of this action. Ancient texts and analyses of the Jewish festival calendar confirm that the incident occurred at the beginning of Passover week, just when trade in the temple was at its peak, with hundreds of thousands of pilgrims in need of sacrificial animals. Jesus did not choose just any day, but the moment of maximum economic activity, an act calculated to have the greatest possible impact on the institution. Even more telling, the area where Jesus acted, the court of the Gentiles, was not a marginal space, but occupied approximately 15 hectares, as confirmed by recent excavations, and represented the largest covered commercial space in the entire Roman Empire in the East. By confronting the merchants in this particular location, Jesus was not simply protesting isolated practices, but directly challenging the heart of the economic power of the priestly elite. The money changers mentioned in the accounts were not simple stallholders, but representatives of the temple banking system. Archaeological records from stone inscriptions found on the Temple Mount indicate that these operations were officially sanctioned and directly controlled by the ruling priestly families. Jesus was thus confronting not isolated abuses, but an institutionalized system that intertwined religion and economics in ways that benefited the elite at the expense of ordinary pilgrims. Jesus' phrase, "den of thieves," quoting Jeremiah, reveals another layer of meaning. The original term referred not to simple theft, but to a structurally unjust economic system that operated under the guise of religious legitimacy. Recent linguistic analyses of Aramaic suggest that Jesus was criticizing not just corrupt individuals, but an entire socio-economic structure that had distorted the original purpose of the temple. This revolutionary understanding completely transforms the narrative. Jesus was not simply calling for reform of corrupt practices within an acceptable system. He was fundamentally challenging the fusion of religious, economic, and political power that the temple had become. This act was not merely religious or moral, it was a profoundly political and economic statement that questioned the very foundations of the established social order. This reinterpretation explains why this specific action, far more than his theological teachings, was cited at his trial as evidence of sedition against Rome, a charge that makes much more sense when we understand the true revolutionary significance of this act against existing power structures, how to incorporate the wisdom of the ancient temple system to transform your spiritual life today. If the temple in Jerusalem was the epicenter of spiritual experience for our ancestors, how can we apply its fundamental principles to revitalize our own spiritual journey today? The discoveries we explore lead us to transformative insights that transcend time and space. The first principle that can be applied to our lives is that of intentional purification. The mikvot, ritual baths, discovered around the temple reveal that purification was not just an abstract concept, but a deliberate physical practice that preceded approaching the sacred. Today, we can incorporate deliberate rituals of preparation before significant spiritual moments, whether meditation, prayer, or contemplation of sacred texts, creating a conscious transition from the mundane to the sacred in our daily routine. The concentric structure of the temple, with courts of increasing holiness, teaches us the principle of gradual approach. Archaeological studies confirm that the journey to the Holy of Holies was a carefully designed progression through increasingly sacred spaces. In our modern spiritual lives, we can apply this concept by creating zones of increasing spiritual focus in our daily lives and even in our physical spaces, a conscious path that takes us from the hectic exterior to the quiet center of our spiritual experience. The sacrificial system, far from being an outdated practice, embodied the powerful principle of tangible surrender. The detailed records of these rituals show that they converted abstract concepts such as gratitude, repentance, and consecration into concrete physical acts. Today, we can revitalize our spirituality by transforming abstract intentions into concrete actions, converting gratitude into real generosity, repentance into active reconciliation, and devotion into practical service. The temple seamlessly integrated the sacred and the secular. Economics, politics, art, and devotion coexisted in a single space. This holistic integration challenges us to overcome the modern compartmentalization of our spiritual lives by reconnecting our sacred experience with our economic decisions, professional relationships, and civic engagement. An embodied spirituality that permeates every aspect of daily existence. Perhaps the most profound lesson comes from the temple veil itself. Ancient sources describe this extraordinary fabric as containing all the elements of creation in its colors and materials. When this veil was torn, according to the gospel narrative, a revolutionary principle was inaugurated: direct access to the divine. Applying this wisdom today means recognizing that we no longer need institutional intermediaries for our connection to the transcendent. We can cultivate a direct, personal, and transformative relationship with the divine. These applications are not mere adaptations of ancient practices, but timeless principles that, when consciously incorporated into our contemporary spiritual journey, have the power to transform our experience of the sacred, bringing depth, authenticity, and relevance to our spiritual quest in an often fragmented and superficial modern world.